Hey guys, tonight let's visit a side of ancient Egypt rarely discussed in bedtime stories. We won't stand in temples or palaces tonight. Instead, we wander through narrow streets, beneath hanging lanterns, and behind quiet doors. We're entering the world of ancient Egyptian brothels, a place where laughter mixed with music, and every night brought stories stranger than the last. Tonight, I'll share with you the most bizarre songs played in these hidden chambers. If these stories help you slow down and drift off, please like the video. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's comforting to know we're all part of this gentle night together. Now, imagine lying back on a soft cushion in a cozy, shaded room. Lamps glow golden on painted walls. The city's noise drifts in like a lullaby. Here, the music is not sacred, and it's not meant for kings. This music is for ordinary people looking for escape. It teases, comforts, and sometimes confuses all at once. Brothel musicians use simple instruments. You hear the pluck of a lute, the gentle flick of a lyre, the airy sigh of a reed flute. Sometimes a drum adds soft heartbeat rhythms. Sometimes a woman shakes a small sistrum, its metal rings whispering through the drifting smoke. The harp might rest in the corner, but it's more common on special nights, a prize for honoured guests or events. What makes these songs so strange? It's the stories. The songs don't talk about gods or heroes. They tell tales about stubborn donkeys trying to dance. They describe cats who steal perfume from the market. Some songs are about a baker who sings to his bread and never gets the recipe right. Others hint at a fisherman who trades everything he owns just for the thrill of a new story to tell. These aren't lessons or warnings. They are bits of nonsense meant to make people laugh, forget worries, and join in the joke. The musicians know when to play fast, filling the room with liveliness when guests are tense. Other times the songs slow down, stretching out like a lazy cat in the sun. The lyrics are playful, even silly. Listeners are not just allowed but encouraged to clap, repeat choruses, or add lines of their own. Some melodies are so familiar that everyone joins in, creating a warm feeling of togetherness. You can hear, if you listen, the difference in these songs. In temples, music carries prayers upward. Here, it lays them gently on the ground. Brothel songs aren't about hope for the future. They are about now, this moment, this silly story, this comfort, and maybe, for just a short time, that's all anyone needs. No one really remembers when many of these songs were first sung. Some say the oldest came from clever servants, others from travellers with stories to trade for a soft bed. Over the years, each musician adds a little more, a new joke, a twist, a chant that only makes sense after midnight. Evenings roll forward like this. Outside, the city sleeps, but inside, music and laughter wind through the room. Odd songs, a gentle hand on a drum, a story of a monkey stealing honey, or a song about a pillow that dreams of moving to the palace. These are the gifts brothel musicians offer night after night, soothing hearts and helping guests feel like they belong, just for a little while. If you'd like a whole video about the life and craft of brothel musicians in ancient times, tell me in the comments. Your curiosity shapes every new journey here. Next, let's move deeper into this world to discover the unusual instruments and little musical games that made these nightly gatherings even more surprising. As we step softly past the laughter and the golden oil lamps, deeper into the winding heart of the brothel, we notice something curious. Where you might expect quiet or hushed voices, you instead find playful activity and, above all, a gentle riot of sound. For those who worked here, and those who came seeking relief from the worries of their everyday lives, music was as much comfort as it was entertainment. But the instruments you find are not the heavy, formal harps of the temple or the solemn pipes of sacred processions. They are tools of joy, surprise, and sometimes pure silliness. Look at the small table in the corner. Here sits a musician, her lap filled with a bundle of tiny bells tied to a string, each one ringing clear and quick when she wiggles her foot. Her hands are busy with a clay pot, an ancient drum, really. It isn't meant for thunderous beats, but for soft, hollow rhythms, like rain pattering on rooftops. Beside her rests a woodblock shaped like a bird, its carved beak clicking gently as it's tapped with a thin reed. Turn your head, and you'll see a young man with nimble fingers and a sunburnt smile. His instrument is new to you. It's made of reeds bound together, each a different length, bound in a curve that fits comfortably in his hands. He blows across each one, and the notes tumble out like the call of dawn birds, sometimes sharp, sometimes sweet, never quite what you expect. The simplest laugh breaks out from the crowd when he tries to imitate the croak of a frog or the cry of a distant hawker in the market. Many brothel songs depend on these little sounds woven into the meter, as much a part of the story as any lyric. One favorite musical game is called the puzzle song. No one ever explains the rules, but guests soon understand. The musicians begin with a recognizable tune, perhaps an old melody everyone knows from the riverbanks or village squares. Then comes the twist. The singer will stop suddenly, replacing a word with a funny sound or a nonsense syllable, sometimes with a trill from the bells or the quacker of that carved wooden bird. The room bursts into giggles as guests try to guess the missing word, call it out, or add a silly challenge of their own. With every round, the song gets stranger, laughter growing wilder, until no one can quite remember how the song began or what the original story ever was. Skillful musicians use this game not just to entertain, but to invite shy guests into the company. Imagine someone new, perhaps tired from travel or lost in their own thoughts. With a quick tune and an invitation, the barrier of strangeness falls away. Soon, everyone is laughing together, finding small joy in being part of the music, even if only for a line or two. The instruments themselves are often chosen for their ability to surprise. There are little gourd rattles filled with seeds that mimic the sound of rushing wind. A woman in the corner plays a frame drum so softly the skin ripples like a whisper. On some nights, a wandering flutist might arrive, bringing with him a bone whistle from a distant province, its voice high and almost bird-like, or a double flute, so he can play both harmony and melody at once. Children, sneaking a glimpse through cracked shutters, sometimes go home humming the odd tunes and trying to build their own strange instruments from scraps and river reed. Music in these brothels isn't meant for complexity. No one judges the chords or demands strict tempo. Tempo comes from the foot tapping of whoever happens to want to dance. The rhythm can suddenly stutter as guests break into laughter, or slow almost to sleepiness as stories and songs meander late into the night. Some of the most beloved melodies here are little more than improvised chants, strung together with the help of crude but clever percussion and whatever wind or string instrument is at hand. Musicians become experts at reading the mood. On stormy nights when the wind rattles the shutters and candles flicker, songs become cozy low, looping melodies with soft bells or the quiet hum of a lyre. The aim is not to drive energy higher, but to turn the room into a nest, safe from watchers and worries and howling winds outside. If a customer comes in grieving or carrying the weight of bad news, the tunes might turn gentle, slow, and full of subtle jokes, hands clapping softly in time, the music wrapping itself around sorrow without poking or prodding too deeply. Occasionally, a popular brothel attracts a regular crowd of musicians. With more players, the games and songs become layered, their rhythms crossing the room in friendly competition. One group may start a call and response, setting up a simple beat and inviting each cluster of guests to add their own phrase. Another might try to outdo one another with wild animal calls, each more hilarious than the last, until what began as a song ends in a joyful racket of squawks, trills, and gentle drum beats. There are favourite songs, told again and again, and favourite contests too. Who can drum with both hands and both feet without missing a beat? Who can spin a new verse about the strange trader who spilled figs all over the floor last week? The winner gets an extra sweetmeat, or simply the admiration and applause of the room, laughter echoing as the night grows late. Underneath all this play is a sense of permission, a sense that here, in the glow and music of this hidden world, you can set aside the weight of work and the rules of the outside day. Music and silly stories create a gentle evening spell, giving rest to the body and quiet delight to the mind. Even as the last song winds down, as the musicians gently pack up their bells and flutes, the memory of these nights lingers, a pocket of comfort, laughter, and music before sleep. Now that we've settled into the warm glow of the brothel and felt the gentle rhythm of its unusual instruments, let's listen more closely to the songs themselves. These aren't just random melodies or simple entertainment. Each song carries its own peculiar story, its own joke, its own way of wrapping listeners in comfort and surprise. Tonight, we'll explore some of the strangest, most beloved tunes that echoed through these hidden chambers, night after night, bringing laughter to weary hearts. One of the most famous songs tells the tale of a merchant who falls in love with his own shadow. The melody begins soft and dreamy, with a lute plucking gentle notes that seem to dance around the room like flickering candlelight. The story unfolds slowly. Our merchant notices his shadow one bright morning and becomes enchanted by its grace, its perfect mimicry, its constant companionship. He begins talking to it, bringing it gifts, even setting a place for it at dinner. The other merchants think he's lost his mind. His family grows worried. But our merchant is blissfully happy, convinced he's found the perfect partner. The song builds as the merchant's obsession grows. He starts wearing different robes to see how his shadow looks in new shapes. He dances in the marketplace just to watch his shadow dance along. The drums pick up the tempo here, and guests often clap along, laughing at the merchant's silly antics. But the best part comes at sunset. As darkness falls and his shadow disappears, the merchant panics. Where has his beloved gone? He runs through the streets with a torch, desperately trying to recreate his shadow, casting wild shapes on walls and making such a commotion that the city guards think he's gone mad. The song ends with dawn breaking, his shadow returning, and the merchant's joyful reunion. But now he's learned his lesson. He treasures his shadow during the day, but sleeps peacefully at night, knowing it will return with the morning sun. The melody fades with gentle bells, and guests often sigh with satisfaction at this peculiar love story that somehow makes perfect sense. Another beloved tune tells of a cat who becomes a fortune teller. This song starts with the mysterious shake of a sistrum, its metal rings creating an otherworldly shimmer. The story begins in a busy marketplace where a clever tabby cat watches people come and go, learning their habits, their worries, their patterns. One day, the cat discovers that by sitting in different positions, paw over eye, tail curled just so, whiskers twitching, people think it's giving them predictions about their future. Word spreads quickly through the city. People bring the cat fish and cream, convinced it can see tomorrow's weather, predict which crops will grow, or reveal if their sweethearts are faithful. The cat, being quite intelligent, learns to read human expressions and give them exactly the signs they're hoping for. A worried mother gets a reassuring purr. A nervous lover receives an encouraging headbutt. A merchant seeking good fortune gets an elegant stretch and yawn that everyone interprets as a positive omen. The song's chorus is infectious, with musicians imitating cat sounds, soft mews, contented purrs, even the occasional hiss for dramatic effect. Guests join in, creating a symphony of human voices pretending to be cats, all while the story continues to unfold. The tale reaches its peak when the city's actual priests come to test this fortune-telling feline. They ask profound questions about the gods, the afterlife, the meaning of dreams. The cat, faced with questions beyond fish and weather, simply does what cats do best. It ignores them completely, cleans its paw, and walks away with magnificent indifference. The priests declare this the wisest response they've ever received to their theological inquiries. The cat becomes legendary, not for predicting the future, but for teaching everyone that sometimes the best answer to life's biggest questions is a dignified silence and a thorough grooming session. The song ends with gentle laughter and the soft tinkle of bells, leaving everyone feeling both amused and oddly wise. Perhaps the strangest song in the brothel repertoire tells of a baker who accidentally invents flying bread. The melody starts with a simple drum beat, steady as kneading dough, while a flute mimics the whistle of wind. Our baker, working late one night, mixes his dough with a bit too much of something. No one can agree what. Some versions say it was wine, others claim it was honey fermented too long. Still, others insist it was simply the baker's own happy humming that somehow got kneaded into the mixture. When morning comes and he puts the loaves in the oven, something magical happens. As they bake, they begin to rise higher than any bread should. They rise so much they lift right out of the oven, float through the window, and drift across the city like delicious clouds. The baker watches in amazement as his bread soars over rooftops, casting shadows on the streets below, attracting flocks of hungry birds who chase the floating loaves like winged children playing a game. The song builds to chaos as the entire city stops to watch this aerial bread parade. People run through the streets with nets, trying to catch breakfast from the sky. Children point and laugh as geese and pigeons engage in aerial battles for the best pieces. Market vendors abandon their stalls to chase flying sustenance. Even the priests emerge from temples, unsure whether to interpret this as a blessing or a very strange omen. The climax comes when the bread, having absorbed too much morning dew, finally grows heavy enough to fall. It rains down on the city in a gentle shower of perfectly baked sustenance, feeding everyone and leaving the baker both famous and slightly puzzled. He never quite manages to recreate the recipe, though he spends the rest of his life trying, much to the amusement of his neighbours who often find him standing in his garden at dawn, hopefully scanning the sky for signs of aerial pastry. These songs serve a deeper purpose beyond simple entertainment. They create a world where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where everyday worries transform into gentle adventures, where the impossible seems not just possible, but perfectly reasonable. In the warm glow of oil lamps, surrounded by soft music and gentle laughter, listeners find themselves transported to a place where shadows can be lovers, cats can be wise, and bread can fly. The beauty of these tales lies in their complete departure from the serious concerns of daily life. No one worries about taxes while listening to flying bread stories. No one frets about work when hearing about fortune-telling cats. For a few precious hours, the brothel becomes a sanctuary of silliness, where music and story weave together to create something more valuable than gold, the gift of forgetting troubles and finding joy in the absurd. As the night deepens and the oil lamps burn lower, casting longer shadows on the painted walls, the mood in the brothel often shifts toward even stranger musical territory. The songs become more elaborate, more mysterious, weaving tales that blur the line between dream and reality. These are the stories that emerge when inhibitions have melted away, when the familiar world outside feels distant, and when imagination is free to wander into the most peculiar corners of possibility. One such song tells the extraordinary tale of a scribe who falls in love with his own handwriting. The melody begins with the soft scratch of reed on papyrus, mimicked by musicians dragging their fingernails gently across the surface of drums. The story unfolds with our scribe, a meticulous man who spends his days copying sacred texts and recording grain shipments for the temple. He takes great pride in his elegant hieroglyphs, his perfectly straight lines, his symbols that flow like water across the page. One evening, working late by lamplight, something magical happens. As he writes, his hieroglyphs begin to shimmer and dance before his tired eyes. The bird symbols seem to flutter their wings, the water signs ripple like tiny rivers, and the human figures appear to bow respectfully as his reed passes over them. At first, he thinks it's simple exhaustion playing tricks on his vision. But night after night, the dancing continues, growing more elaborate and enchanting. The scribe becomes obsessed with creating the most beautiful writing possible, hoping to see his characters perform their nightly dance with even greater grace. He experiments with different inks, various reed cuts, papers made from the finest papyrus. His hieroglyphs become works of art, each symbol crafted with the devotion usually reserved for temple carvings. Other scribes notice his work growing more beautiful, but also more time-consuming, as he spends hours perfecting every curve and line. The song takes a humorous turn when the scribe begins talking to his writing, asking his hieroglyphs for advice, arguing with particularly stubborn symbols that refuse to look elegant no matter how carefully he draws them. He starts assigning personalities to different characters. The hawk symbol is proud and aloof, the bread loaf is cheerful and welcoming, the water signs are playful and mischievous, always seeming to ripple at exactly the wrong moment. Musicians accompany this part of the story with playful sound effects. Flutes trill for the bird symbols, drums bubble softly for the water signs, and small bells chime whenever the scribe discovers a particularly perfect piece of writing. Guests in the brothel often join in, making their own sound effects, turning the performance into a collaborative celebration of this peculiar romance between man and written word. The climax arrives when the scribe's reputation for beautiful writing reaches the Pharaoh himself. Summoned to create an important document, our scribe panics. What if his hieroglyphs don't dance for the Pharaoh? What if they remain still and ordinary under royal scrutiny? He spends sleepless nights practicing, pleading with his symbols to perform their best dance when the moment comes. The performance day arrives, and as the scribe writes the royal decree, something wonderful happens. Not only do his hieroglyphs dance for him, but they seem to dance for everyone watching. The Pharaoh and his court stand mesmerized as the symbols appear to move gracefully across the papyrus. Whether it's magic, excellent craftsmanship, or simply the power of collective imagination, the scribe becomes legendary as the man whose writing comes alive. The song ends gently, with the scribe contentedly writing in his chamber, surrounded by scrolls covered in dancing hieroglyphs, finally at peace with his unusual love affair. The melody fades with soft bells and the gentle scratch of reed on papyrus, leaving listeners with a strange sense of satisfaction and wonder. Another deeply bizarre favorite tells of a woman who discovers she can taste colors. This song begins with an ethereal quality, flutes playing long, sustained notes that seem to hang in the air like visible music. The story introduces us to a weaver who works with dyes, creating beautiful fabrics for the wealthy families of the city. One morning, after working late into the night with particularly vivid pigments, she wakes with an extraordinary ability. Every color she sees has its own distinct flavor. Red tastes like sweet dates warmed by the sun. Blue carries the cool flavor of river water on a hot day. Yellow bursts with the tang of fresh lemons, while green offers the gentle taste of young lettuce leaves. Purple provides the rich complexity of aged wine, and orange delivers the bright zing of morning citrus. The weaver finds herself overwhelmed by this new sensory world, tasting rainbows in every glance around her colorful workshop. Initially frightened by this strange gift, she considers it a curse. How can she work with dyes when every color floods her mouth with flavor? Red fabrics make her crave fruit, blue cloth leaves her perpetually thirsty, and yellow materials cause her to pucker as if she'd bitten into something sour. Her work becomes chaotic as she finds herself distracted by the constant parade of tastes accompanying every visual moment. The song builds as the weaver begins to experiment with her newfound ability. She discovers that different combinations of colors create complex flavor experiences, like elaborate meals crafted from pure sight. A red and gold fabric tastes like honey cakes, while blue and silver combinations offer the refreshing sensation of mint tea. Green and brown patterns provide the earthy satisfaction of fresh bread and herbs. Musicians enhance this part of the performance by incorporating actual food into the music. They might pass small samples of dates, bread, or wine to guests while describing the color combinations, creating a multi-sensory experience that mirrors the weaver's strange gift. The audience becomes part of the story, tasting flavors while listening to descriptions of colors, blurring the boundaries between different senses. The weaver's reputation spreads throughout the city as word gets out about her unusual condition. People bring her flowers, painted pottery, colorful jewelry, curious to hear her describe the flavors she experiences. She becomes a living translator between sight and taste, helping others understand the hidden connections between their senses. Painters consult her when choosing color combinations, asking whether their artwork will create pleasant or unpleasant flavor experiences. The story reaches its peak when the weaver realizes she can create fabrics that tell flavor stories. She begins weaving tapestries designed not just for visual beauty, but for the taste experiences they provide her. Each tapestry becomes a meal told in colors, a feast for eyes that becomes a feast for one extraordinary tongue. Her workshop becomes a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to understand the mysterious connections between their senses. The song concludes with the weaver contentedly working in her studio, surrounded by fabrics that sing to her taste buds, no longer seeing her gift as a burden, but as a unique form of artistic expression. She has learned to live in a world where sight and taste dance together, creating experiences unavailable to anyone else. The melody fades with gentle notes that seem to carry their own flavors, leaving listeners wondering about the hidden connections between their own senses. These elaborate songs serve as more than entertainment in the brothel setting. They create shared dreams, collective journeys into worlds where the impossible becomes possible, where ordinary people discover extraordinary abilities, where the mundane transforms into magic. In the warm, intimate atmosphere of these hidden chambers, listeners find themselves transported beyond their daily concerns into realms of wonder and possibility. As the night winds deeper into quiet hours, the brothel becomes a different kind of gathering place, a haven where imagination, music, and gentle absurdity take center stage. Within these soft-lit rooms, musicians and storytellers weave their wildest tales, encouraging listeners to leave fear and worry at the door and step, just for a little while, into a world built purely from wonder. One classic brothel song is about a rooster who dreams of being a riverboat captain. The musicians start with a rhythmic strum meant to mimic the gentle movement of the boat on water. As the melody stretches and swings, the story unfolds. A proud rooster watches boats drifting down the Nile and longs to leave his simple courtyard life. He spends his days practicing the art of sailing on puddles after rain, strutting around with a leaf held high as a makeshift paddle. His friends in the barnyard laugh and tease, but the rooster is undeterred, convinced he is meant for life on the open river. The song is lively, full of playful flutes and quick percussive beats. Listeners are drawn into the rooster's journey as he secretly climbs aboard a fisherman's skiff one moonlit evening. Hidden beneath fishing nets, he imagines himself at the helm, navigating the currents with clever clucks and a brave heart. The current grows wild, a storm blows in, and the rooster's makeshift captaincy is put to the test. He squawks out orders to invisible crew members, flaps his wings against the wind, and, most ridiculous of all, tries to crow the dawn at midnight, hoping to ward off dark clouds. Eventually the boat, guided more by luck than skill, bumps softly against a sandbar, and the rooster tumbles out in a heap. Fishermen, hearing the commotion, find themselves bewildered by the sight of their stowaway captain. Far from being angry, they burst out laughing, lifting the rooster on their shoulders. The next day, the barnyard rings with tales of the rooster's voyage, his reputation swelling as the bird who dared to dream. Guests in the brothel clap along and call out advice to the rooster as the music swells. Some improvise new verses, imagining what animals would do if dreams guided their lives. Cats as poets, dogs as jewelry makers, geese as secret scribes. The room fills with laughter, camaraderie, and a shared sense of possibility. Another beloved song from these corners is the curious tale of a lonely sandal who yearns for a matching pair. The sandal's voice is evoked by a gentle tapping, as if marking out steps on a quiet street. The story opens in a bustling marketplace, where shoes and sandals of every shape and size are bought, sold, and repaired. One humble sandal sits in a basket, watching the world parade past, wishing for companionship. As days turn to weeks, the sandal makes friends with other lost objects: a golden button, a cracked clay pot, a faded feather quill. Together, they plot ways to be noticed, hoping someone will see their value and unite them with their missing halves. The music here turns whimsical, with quick changes in tempo and playful jingles for the feather, hollow notes for the pot, and bright trills for the button. The sandal dreams of adventure, sneaking out after dusk, tiptoeing across the city in search of shoes just like itself. It tries shops, temples, and even the steps of the palace, always just missing the perfect match. The tale draws in the brothel guests, who suggest places to search or kinds of adventures only a lonely sandal could attempt. Sometimes the musicians respond, adding verses on the fly, inventing mishaps and clever solutions for the sandal's quest. The song always finds its gentle ending. One peaceful morning, the basket is kicked by a child playing hopscotch, and the sandal, battered but hopeful, lands right beside its missing pair. The reunion is simple but joyful. The pair is sold together, and soon the two walk through life in step, proof that hope and patience matter, even for the humblest of things. Perhaps the most unexpectedly touching brothel song is about a fisherman who wants only to learn how to dance. He watches people in the square, sees joy spill across their faces with every twirl and leap, yet he feels tethered to the rhythm of the river, unable to move his feet past the habits of daily work. Late one summer's evening, he asks a musician in the brothel for help. She teaches him a simple step, a gentle swing of the arms, and slowly the fisherman begins to find the rhythm in his own heart. The music here shifts, blending soft harp tones with the heartbeat of a drum, encouraging all who listen to imagine new ways to move, to join in the dance of possibility. The fisherman, in the song's final verse, gains his confidence, leading a circle of friends in a slow, joyful dance beneath the pale lantern light. The story is not of mastery, but of courage, the beauty in trying something new, in allowing music to guide you into unexpected grace. These songs remind everyone present that life outside the brothel, a life of markets, chores, routines, can wait. Here, music allows for gentle escape, for enchantment, for a deep sense of connection among strangers, friends, and storytellers. As the last notes recede into quiet, the guests feel lighter, hopeful, touched by the possibility of finding their own adventures, their own reunions, their own dazzling dances when dawn returns. And so, in these curious corners of the ancient city, music holds the night together. Not with grand answers or heavy meaning, but with gentle surprises and laughter, with stories that sing in the dark, helping hearts rest until morning breaks once again. When dawn creeps closer, and the last cups of wine are drained, the music inside the brothel softens, yet the stories take on an even stranger brilliance. This is the sacred hour of truth songs, tunes that gently mock the quirks of everyday life, offer poetic reflections on the human condition, and create moments where everyone, guests and musicians alike, can laugh at themselves and each other. These songs are not only bizarre, but full of wisdom built from the small wonders and quiet absurdities that make life beautiful and bearable. A favorite among regular patrons is the song of the forgetful camel. The melody moves gently with the slow pluck of a lyre and a sleepy-sounding rattle, mimicking the loping stride of a camel crossing endless sand. The story tells of a camel who wakes each morning certain he must make a great journey, but forgets immediately where he was supposed to go. Instead, he spends his days inventing new destinations, chasing rumored oases, searching for legendary mirages, and even attempting to buy souvenirs for a journey he can never quite start. As the camel wanders, he meets others who are lost. A merchant who forgets his own wares, a cook who can't remember her favorite recipe, a guard who loses his keys to the city gate every single day. Each verse is filled with gentle jokes and odd wisdom. The lesson is not about getting somewhere, but about enjoying the journey itself, keeping good company, and laughing at yourself when the world refuses to make sense. Musicians encourage guests to join in. The refrain is simple. Everyone hums along, some even confessing their own forgetful moments. Boxes of props, a fake merchant's bag, a guard's toy key are passed around, each person invited to play a brief role in the developing story. The song stretches out, weaving impromptu confessions into the verses, layering personal anecdotes atop the camel's whimsical wanderings. Another popular tune is about a barber whose snips and trims change the fate of his clients. Each time the barber cuts a lock of hair, something peculiar happens. Suddenly, the person speaks a truth they've never dared utter before. Some sing a secret song, others declare old dreams, a few admit their hidden fears or forgotten loves. The music moves between bright, playful notes and gentle refrains, a blend of tambourine, flute, and subtle harp, emphasizing the theme of change and revelation. The barber's humble shop becomes a place where stories are exchanged along with haircuts, where laughter and understanding are offered with every snip. The song itself turns into a kind of ritual within the brothel. They bring out a mock pair of scissors, and guests volunteer to share a truth if they sit in the barber's chair. These moments are surprising, sometimes touching, always followed by applause and gentle teasing that makes the room feel alive and safe. There's also the extraordinary story song of The Goose Who Refused to Honk. At first, the tale is simple. A goose lives among noisy companions, all of whom honk proudly at any excuse. But this goose decides to stay silent, preferring to communicate in mysterious gestures and subtle movements. The other animals become obsessed with interpreting his silence, reading secret messages into every tilt of his head, every flutter of wing. Soon, the entire barnyard is speaking in riddles, unsure which messages are real and which are imagined. Musicians mimic the goose's quiet, using their instruments to create a soft, layered hush that fills the brothel with anticipation. Every so often, they break the quiet with a burst of sudden sound, a honk, a clap, a quick drum beat, startling everyone into laughter. The story's lesson is clear. Sometimes the loudest message comes from quiet patience, and sometimes silence is its own kind of music. As these bizarre songs fill the early hours, the brothel transforms again. What started as entertainment becomes gentle revelation, a mirror showing the funny and fragile ways people search for meaning, connection, and joy. Laughter becomes medicine. The simple act of singing together, clapping for a camel, confessing truths with a makeshift barber's scissors, or guessing the goose's silent message joins everyone in an unbroken circle. Guests begin to ready for sleep or for their walk home through the slowly brightening streets. Musicians wind down with lullabies drawn from the evening stories. A final tune about the merchant asleep on his own wares, the fisherman dreaming of dancing geese, or the camel drifting gently through sand-colored dreams. And when at last the songs fade, quiet returns, the soft hush of night, handing each guest a head filled with gentle nonsense, odd truths, and subtle delights. These are the gifts ancient brothel musicians gave their listeners. Not grand answers or heavy lessons, but simple, joyful stories that soften the edge of reality, making the world feel a bit lighter as morning arrives. By the time pale hints of morning spill into the sky, the brothel has become something gently magical. It is quieter now. Many guests have drifted to sleep against soft cushions, their hearts calmed and lightened by music's strange stories. Yet for those who remain, the most dreamlike songs are saved for last. These are the tunes for the edge of waking, lullabies crafted not for children, but for grown-ups longing, just for a while, to forget all troubles and float on currents of wonder. Among these is the haunting Song of the Crocodile's Lucky Pebble. The music casts a spell, just a slow, rippling pattern on the harp, a hush of breath across a reed flute. The tale tells of a young crocodile, gentle, shy, and afraid to swim in the deepest part of the Nile. One day, while sunning on a riverbank, the crocodile spies a flash of colour beneath the water. Curiosity stronger than fear, he dives and finds a smooth pebble veined with gold and green. When the crocodile keeps it in his mouth, something remarkable happens. Suddenly, he can understand the speech of every bird, frog, and fish along the river. The song moves gently as the crocodile, puzzled but delighted, collects stories from every creature he meets. A heron shares wisdom about flying high but never losing sight of home. Frogs brag about how their songs summon rain. Catfish tell jokes that bubble up from the silt. With every new friend, the crocodile gains courage, swimming further and deeper, guided not by fear, but by the wonderfully odd voices around him. The music becomes immersive, with musicians echoing animal calls, coaxing gentle laughter and comfort from the sleepy room. As the night wanes, listeners find themselves thinking about the treasures they carry, the dreams that seem ordinary but open hidden worlds within. The song ends with the crocodile resting happily in a quiet cove, pebble pressed to his heart, surrounded by his river friends. The melody fades as softly as river mist, inviting guests to keep their own lucky pebbles close as they drift into dreams. Another favorite late-night tale is The Adventure of the Dancing Pot. This song begins with a hollow, rhythmic patter on clay, imitating the sound of a cook stirring soup before dawn. The story is simple. A small, plain pot is tired of seeing all the fancy dishes paraded past her in the brothel's kitchen. She longs for attention, for a life of celebration instead of utility. One night, as the last guests finish their meal, she decides to roll away down the corridor, leading a parade of spoons, cups, and sugar bowls. The song's tempo rises and falls, mirroring the pot's clumsy, joyful journey, a spin here, a leap there, pots and cups clattering like a band of mischievous children. The musicians' voices adopt the tones of each runaway dish, the deep voice of the soup pot, the squeak of a teacup, the booming authority of a wooden spoon. They invent mishaps and tricks. Perhaps the sugar bowl loses its lid, or a spoon gets distracted by its own reflection in a tray. The laughter is sleepy but sincere, the room wrapped in a cocoon of harmless silliness. In the tale's end, the dancing pot winds up in the courtyard, watching the sunrise, tired but proud. She has become, just for a night, something bright and memorable. And the next day, as cooks grumble and gather their scattered pots, everyone finds herself smiling, secretly glad for the joyful rebellion. One more lullaby, a well-loved fragment, drifts around the brothel as dawn breaks, the song of the pillow that could not sleep. This is the gentlest of all, the story of a pillow who loves its guests so much that, each night, it changes its fluff and gives away all its dreams. Guests who rest on the pillow wake with a comfort so deep they cannot remember their worries. But when everyone is gone, the pillow is lonely. One evening, a kind musician finds it, tucks it beside her own bed, and tells it a bedtime story, the final, perfect ending to a night of giving. As the song closes, soft notes mimic a heartbeat, and even the most restless souls in the room settle, ready for true rest at last. With these songs, the musicians weave their own blessing, offering not answers, but worlds where anything can be possible, where all may laugh, wonder, and finally sleep. As the very first light slips in through cracks in the shutters, you realize you've spent the night surrounded not just by music, but by community, imagination, and a sense of gentle, harmless mischief. For those listening now, I hope these stories carry you safely to morning, reminding you that even in the strangest places and silliest songs, there is always peace to be found, and a little magic for anyone willing to listen. As the sun finally crests the horizon, a hush settles over the brothel. The musicians, weary but content, begin to tidy their corner, gathering the bells, flutes, and friendly rattles used through the long night. Yet before leaving, there is one last tradition. An early morning song meant to send guests out into the new day with a spirit of lightness and resilience. Its lyrics are perhaps the most peculiar of all, weaving together lessons learned from a night bathed in the gentle glow of music and laughter. This song tells the story of the wise beetle who carried the day. The tune begins with a slow, rolling beat from a drum filled not with animal hide but with smooth river stones. There's a drone from the stringed lute, broken at intervals by the chirping of a reed whistle mimicking the beetle's busy feet. The story opens along the banks of the river, where the beetle rolls his prized ball of mud each morning with careful, mindful devotion. The other insects tease him, saying he isn't strong or fast enough. Yet each day, through patience, the beetle surprises everyone. He builds the mud into the foundation of a perfect garden that shelters ants, butterflies, and even a tired grasshopper in need of shade. The lyrics are playful, filled with tongue twisters and silly rhymes, inviting the brothel's guests, who are often groggy and slow themselves, to sing along, tripping over lines, laughing softly at their own mistakes. As the garden grows, so does the beetle's wisdom. He learns the importance of listening to others, taking breaks, and sharing his shelter even with the proudest cricket who once belittled him. The music builds its final refrain around these small lessons, encouraging everyone to roll their own pebble just a little way each day, celebrating little successes with friends and kindness. Next comes the Song of the Traveller's Lantern, a restful melody played just before everyone departs. This tune features a chorus all about hope, how even the smallest lantern can cut through thick fog or darkest alleyway, guiding someone safely home. The lyrics encourage listeners to imagine their own lantern burning inside, steady even when the world outside feels uncertain and new. Musicians might invite everyone to hold up a cup or wave their hands in time, a symbolic lantern lighting, offering silent encouragement for whatever tasks or adventures await everyone beyond the brothel's doors. One final story, sometimes whispered as guests slip out, is the tale of the donkey who knew 1,000 names. The donkey works the crowded city during the day, pulling carts and carrying loads. By night, she wanders to the brothel, greeting each visitor with a different name, a playful nod to the roles and masks everyone wears in public and private. The song is slow and thoughtful, meditative with its harp and flute lines, weaving in the lesson that all names, each role, each mask are welcome here, and that in the safety of the brothel's embrace, everyone can truly rest, no matter who they must be outside. These early morning songs, with all their strange lyrics and gentle wisdom, play two roles. They close the night with warmth and humor, and they prime the heart for day. Laughter and oddity linger, giving each guest a blanket of ease and acceptance. The brothel musicians are skilled not only in song or instrument, but in the art of sending people out into the world feeling recognized, valued, and quietly brave. Soon, the musicians wave goodbye and step out into sunlit courtyards with their flutes tucked beneath their arms, already sharing soft jokes and plans for the night to come. The brothel empties slowly, but the music and stories remain, echoes inside hearts and minds, gentle reminders that wherever the day leads, kindness, humor, and wonder can always be found, sometimes in the most unexpected places. And as you reflect on these tales of beetles and donkeys, travelers and lanterns, let your breath slow, your thoughts grow lighter, your own troubles dim. Await the next story, and may the memory of these silly, comforting songs light your way through dreams and into tomorrow. As the day outside grows brighter and the city stirs with purpose, some guests linger in the brothel, chatting with musicians over simple breakfast. These quiet moments after a long night of music reveal another side of brothel life. The gentle conversations, tales, and laughter woven around small meals and shared stories. It is here, at the threshold between night and day, that some of the strangest and most philosophical songs quietly come to life. One favorite is the Song of the Clay Sparrow. The music is soft, with gentle taps on clay pots and a warm hum of lute strings. The story centers on a small sparrow, not made of feathers, but shaped out of potter's clay by a lonely artisan in his cramped shop. The sparrow longs to see the world beyond the kiln and the marketplace, so each night, as the city quiets, it wishes itself alive. There is magic here, but it is subtle. The clay sparrow never quite wakes up, but each wish weaves dreamy adventures for its creator. A journey across the river, a flight over sun-kissed fields, a meeting with real sparrows whose cheerful songs stir the potter's heart. As the song unfolds, musicians trade roles, sometimes imitating the chirp of birds with gentle flutes, other times letting drums echo the imagined beating of clay wings. Guests listen silently, some closing their eyes and leaning back, allowing the gentle rhythm to trickle into their dreams. The melody circles again and again. Each time it returns, the sparrow's quest for flight grows richer, filled with more hope, until the final verse, when the potter, moved by his creation's longing, gifts his most beautiful piece to the temple, celebrating the ability of even the humblest creature to inspire dreams. Another curious tune is the Ballad of the Talking Sandals. It begins with two musicians thumping their feet in time, tapping out the rhythm of city life, busy, steady, always moving. The story is light-hearted. A pair of old sandals, worn thin by years of walking Thebes' dusty streets, begin whispering secrets to each other at night. They laugh about the places they've seen, markets, brothels, palaces, river docks. Each sandal brags that it's been more important in the journey, and guests often pick sides, defending the left or right sandal with playful banter. The musicians build up the story, letting the rhythm grow, and soon the guests join in, sharing their own sandal stories, lucky day trips, hidden corners found, unexpected kindness received on lonely stretches of road. Beyond the laughter, there's a gentle wisdom here. The song suggests that life is best measured in steps, in the simple joys scattered through ordinary days. Before it ends, the musicians invite everyone to stomp in time, forming a chorus of footsteps that blend with the last verse, leaving a sense of unity and shared adventure. In the soft light of morning, one final story unfolds, the tune of the sleepy lantern seller. This quiet ballad features simple harmonics on harp, imitating the gentle flicker of lantern light. It tells of a lantern seller who spends her days awake but feels most alive at dusk when she lights hundreds of wicks for customers heading home. Her lanterns are said to hold secrets, and anyone who stays for a second cup of tea hears a gentle song float up from inside. Each lantern hums its own tune. Blue ones dream of deep rivers, red ones sing of sunny fields, green ones tell of windy courtyards. When sleep comes at last, the seller is surrounded by a glowing rainbow of dreams. The musicians slow the music, letting silence seep between the notes, encouraging everyone to imagine the colors and lights in their own lives. Listeners begin to slip away or settle in for rest, their hearts a little brighter for the gentle stories shared, the simple truths found in music and friendship. These morning songs, as much as the wild and funny stories of the night, help guests welcome a new day with softness and humor. The brothel, once a secret corner for laughter and oddity, becomes a sanctuary for reflection, a place to gather wisdom, reset intentions, and carry tiny sparks of joy into tomorrow. As you listen, allow these humble tales of sparrows, sandals, and lanterns to soften your thoughts. Let them root you in the present, awake but untroubled, ready to meet whatever the day may bring. And remember, no matter how ordinary the setting or silly the song, there is always a story waiting to bring light and laughter to your world. With day now shining through the brothel's quiet hallways, the atmosphere takes on a gentle, reflective tone. Musicians pack their instruments, but the echoes of the night linger, coloring conversations and warming hearts. Some guests prepare to leave, but others linger just a little longer, savoring the afterglow of music and light-hearted tales. At this closing hour, brothel songs shift toward wisdom and farewell tunes designed to send listeners out with comfort and hope. One closing favorite is the Song of the Patient Onion. The melody is humble, played on a mellow string and the soft tap of a wooden spoon. The story is about an old onion who waits in a cook's cellar, watching as garlic, herbs, and exotic spices are whisked off for fine recipes, while she remains with roots tangled in dust. Yet as the seasons change, the cook faces a challenge. All other flavors fail, and only the onion's slow sweetness can rescue a sour stew. The tale isn't just about food, but about patience and quiet faith. The onion is finally chosen, peeled and diced, and with each layer added to the pot, the kitchen fills with the gentle, familiar aroma of home. The cook smiles. The song's final verses are soft. Guests sigh, some think of their own long journeys and quiet contributions, and everyone feels the simple joy that waits beneath life's surface. Another closing tune is the Song of the Window and the Cloud. This one brings the room to stillness as a gentle wind flows through, accompanied by flute and harp. The story is about a small window who wishes she could follow passing clouds to distant places. She envies their freedom, movement, and endless change. But every morning, the cloud pauses outside her frame, showering her with sun, rain, and moonlight. Over time, the window realizes she has a purpose, framing the beauty, giving shelter, and offering a quiet, unwavering welcome to all who look out or come home. As the melody floats gently, guests begin to rise and stretch, feeling the wisdom of the window, understanding the grace not just in wandering, but in staying, welcoming, and holding space for dreamers. The brothel musicians play a last simple harmony, the song of the water jug's wish. A water jug sits forgotten on a low shelf, wishing to join the wild river outside. Then one day, someone takes her for a picnic, filling her and carrying her all around the city. She sees gardens, festivals, peaceful homes, always returning full. The jug realizes she serves her purpose not by tumbling through world adventures, but by bringing refreshment wherever she's needed. Listeners feel this truth. Most journeys, after all, are in what we give and how we serve, rather than where we go. When the melody fades, guests gather their things, thank the musicians, and step out into the new day, their minds filled with gentle reminders from the tales sung all night long. Stories about animals, objects, and ordinary people woven into music and laughter linger, comforting souls and preparing everyone for whatever is waiting outside. The brothel musicians, united and proud, share soft jokes and promises to return tomorrow. Their art and kindness have worked a quiet magic, revealing to all that music, however strange, silly, or humble, can be a lantern in the dark, a soothing hand at dawn, or a guiding note amid life's many steps. As the memories of music and laughter ripple through the brothel in the quiet aftermath of breakfast, there remains one last category of song, a tradition cherished by musicians and guests alike. These are known as lost songs. Not lost in the sense of forgotten, but songs designed to raise questions, provoke curiosity, and invite listeners to imagine endings and meanings for themselves. They are intentionally incomplete, subtly strange, and their mysteries are discussed for hours after the music ends. One of the most celebrated, lost songs is the tale of the empty jar. The musicians begin with a hollow, echoing rhythm, tapping carefully at the mouth of an unfilled clay jar. The story opens with a merchant who buys a jar at market, never managing to fill it no matter what he pours. Water, oil, even handfuls of sand slip away unnoticed. He tries flowers, then coins, then scraps of papyrus with secret messages. Each verse describes a new attempt, each one ending with an empty jar. As the story progresses, guests gather near, adding playful suggestions. What if the jar could be filled with music? With sunlight? With laughter? Musicians weave these ideas into improvised verses, allowing the jar to contain dreams, wishes, even the sighs of those who feel forgotten. Every attempt is light, funny, sometimes touching. Yet, at the end, the jar is still empty. Or, perhaps more accurately, still waiting. The music slows, and the refrain invites everyone to ask, is the jar valuable because it holds nothing, or because it waits to be filled? The musicians step back, leaving the question open, encouraging listeners to talk among themselves and invent their own answers. This song lingers long after the last note, its gentle riddle travelling with each person into the day outside. Another famous unfinished tune is the Song of the Thirsty Shadow. It's a story told in hushed harmonics, describing a shadow that follows a traveller all through the city, always a step behind, longing for water but never able to drink. The traveller tries to help, offering shade, sharing a cool drink, even teaching the shadow to swim in a nearby canal. No remedy works, but the shadow begins to lead the traveller to cool places, fountains, deep cellars, quiet courtyards. Guests are drawn into discussion. Is the shadow thirsty, or is it simply leading the traveller somewhere new? Is their journey about finding refreshment, or about finding friendship? The song ends on a mysterious, unresolved note. leaving the listeners to ponder and perhaps weave their own verses, extending the story in whatever way feels true. These lost songs aren't for closing the night, they're for sparking deeper thought and conversation, for making the brothel much more than a place of simple entertainment. When musicians finish, they often encourage guests to share their own interpretations, personal stories, or even to compose new endings in future visits. The brothel becomes, in this gentle light, not a place where stories are finished, but a haven for imagination and co-creation, a meeting point for colourful minds, gentle souls, and the quiet wisdom of community. As the day wears on and the crowd of guests thins, the brothel transforms once more. Musicians move from the lively main room to smaller alcoves where those who remain seek quieter company. A chance to hear tales not just of the city's laughter, but of its ancient wonders and hidden mysteries. In these intimate gatherings, the bizarre songs take on a deeper tone, still soft and playful, but richer in imagination and meaning, sometimes veering toward dreams, riddles, and what can only be called philosophical mischief. One of the most beloved of these songs is the parable of the 5 cups. The melody is slow, looping, sometimes played with gentle taps on the edge of ceramic goblets and a whisper of finger cymbals. The story begins with a wandering peddler who arrives at the brothel one autumn afternoon carrying a satchel filled with 5 empty cups. He claims that each cup has seen something so strange that it cannot be refilled with anything ordinary. The first cup, he says, once held the light of a comet that blazed across the night. Since then, any wine poured into it glows faintly blue and tastes of cold rain. The second cup, he claims, caught the laughter of a seagull swooping on a cloudless day. No liquid will stay inside it for long. It spills with every chuckle, as if eager to join free air. The third cup once received the shadow of Pharaoh's crown during a city festival. Every sip from this cup brings a little dizziness, as if the weight of too many secrets presses down behind the eyes. Guests listening are drawn into the riddle. What makes these cups truly unique? Why can't they be filled like normal ones? Musicians invite those present to invent stories for the 4th and 5th cups. One guest may suggest the 4th cup cradled the tears of a bride, forever gentle and sweet, while another says the 5th caught the sunrise in the desert, so its rim is forever warm to the touch, no matter the hour. As the song winds on, each cup becomes both a riddle and a mirror, asking listeners to think about what makes even the smallest things in their own lives so strange and unforgettable. Guests take turns describing their own strange cups, souvenirs, tokens, odd memories that no one else can fully understand. The melodies dance between the stories, encouraging reflection and gentle laughter. Another peculiar favorite in these alcoves is the puzzle of the dreaming donkey. The tune is playful and circular, with flutes creating a wandering pattern, sometimes doubling back, sometimes branching out into meandering harmonies. The story describes a donkey who claims to remember every dream he's ever had. His dreams are never simple. He dreams of floating on clouds made of bread, of trading shoes with palace guards, of becoming invisible in a crowd and overhearing every secret in the city. Each dream verse brings a new layer of weirdness. The donkey once dreamt he could swim like an eel and spent a whole morning searching for water wings. Another time he dreamt of talking to the moon, who told him that all the city's lanterns borrowed their light from stars no one could see by daylight. Every time the donkey tries to retell these dreams, he finds himself tongue-tied, words running together, confused as to what was real and what was imagined. In these sessions, musicians invite guests to add their own dream verses, pausing to let each person share a recent dream or funny daydream. The laughter is warm, but the message is kindly. We all live in the halfway place between what is real and what is wondered, between the city's busy streets and the quiet world of sleep. The most philosophical of all the morning songs is the riddle of the mirror and the market bell. Played with steady, contemplative harp chords and soft wooden bells, it tells about a mirror that hangs at the entrance to a busy market. Unlike ordinary mirrors, this one doesn't show faces, but memories. Anyone who looks into the mirror before sunrise sees a fleeting vision, not of their features, but of the happiest or oddest moment in their life. Some see childhood games, some a long-held wish, others a simple picture of their favorite food on a rainy afternoon. The market bell, rung just after dawn, clears the visions from the glass, so every memory is private and unique. The last verse describes a traveller who, having lost his belongings, looks into the mirror and sees every place he longed to visit, every stranger who ever showed him kindness. The bell rings, the mirror goes blank, leaving only the quiet peace of knowing he carries the best part of himself, always. Musicians encourage guests to sit quietly, even close their eyes, picturing what their own market mirror might show. For a moment, the brothel is transformed again, not into a place of laughter or wild stories, but of soft contemplation, supporting every listener as they prepare to rejoin the world outside. The 5 Cups parable, the dreaming donkey puzzle, and the market bell mirror encapsulate why the brothel's music holds such a place in the hearts of those who hear it. It is never just escapism. Even in these strange, whimsical tales there is a thread of wisdom, an affirmation that small moments matter, dreams are worth remembering, and every person is joined, through story and song, in the search for wonder, meaning, and gentle connection. As afternoon settles over the brothel, and the Egyptian sun reaches its peak outside, a different energy fills the rooms. The morning's gentle philosophy gives way to something more theatrical, more daring. This is when the musicians bring out their most elaborate performances, songs that require costumes, props, and the participation of everyone present. These are the transformation songs, where ordinary guests become characters in wild tales, and the brothel itself becomes a stage for the most outrageous stories ever sung in ancient Egypt. The most famous of these theatrical songs is the epic of the Pharaoh's missing beard. Musicians begin with a dramatic drum roll, followed by the deep, authoritative tones of a horn made from a curved ram's shell. The story opens with a crisis in the palace. Pharaoh's ceremonial beard has vanished overnight, leaving him unable to appear before his subjects. Without his divine beard, he feels powerless, mortal, ordinary. The court is in chaos. Guards search every corner of the palace. Priests consult the gods. The queen suggests checking the royal laundry. As the tale unfolds, musicians distribute simple props to the guests. Fake beards made of braided reeds, tiny crowns fashioned from palm fronds, even mock scrolls for those playing advisors. The brothel transforms into a miniature palace, with guests taking on roles as they feel moved to participate. Some become bumbling guards, others wise counselors, still others play the part of confused servants who claim to have seen the beard floating through the corridors like a golden ghost. The song builds through increasingly ridiculous plot twists. Perhaps the beard was stolen by a jealous cat who wanted to look regal. Maybe it escaped on its own, tired of being attached to someone's chin all day. One guest might suggest it went swimming in the Nile and got tangled in fishing nets. Another proposes it joined a caravan to distant lands, seeking adventure beyond palace walls. Musicians weave each suggestion into new verses, their voices rising and falling with the drama. Drums punctuate the action, flutes provide comic sound effects, and the ram's horn returns for moments of mock grandeur. The performance becomes collaborative theatre, with guests shouting out ideas, acting out scenes, and dissolving into laughter as the story grows more preposterous. The resolution comes when someone, often the shyest guest in the room, discovers the beard wrapped around a sleeping palace dog who had been using it as a cozy blanket. Pharaoh, relieved and amused, declares the dog an honorary member of the royal family. The song ends with everyone singing a chorus about the wisdom of checking the most obvious places last, while the Pharaoh of the brothel ceremoniously awards the dog a crown made of bread crusts. Another spectacular performance piece is the Ballad of the Dancing Crocodile of Memphis. This song requires even more elaborate staging, with musicians using painted screens, coloured scarves, and wooden masks to transform the brothel into the banks of the Nile. The story tells of a crocodile who dreams of joining the royal dancers in Pharaoh's court, despite being, quite obviously, a large aquatic reptile with no sense of rhythm. The crocodile begins by practicing dance moves in the muddy shallows, much to the amusement of passing boats. Musicians mime the crocodile's clumsy attempts at graceful movement, while guests are invited to play various riverside characters, fishermen, lotus pickers, washerwomen, and travelling merchants who witness this bizarre spectacle. As the story progresses, word of the dancing crocodile reaches the palace. Some say it's a divine sign, others claim it's simple madness. The queen, known for her love of novelty, demands to see this wonder for herself. The crocodile is ceremoniously invited to court, where it attempts to perform alongside the trained dancers. Here, the brothel erupts into choreographed chaos. Guests link arms, attempting to dance like crocodiles, low to the ground, snapping their jaws in time with the music, their movements deliberately awkward and comical. Musicians provide a complex rhythm that seems impossible to follow, encouraging everyone to stumble, laugh, and try again. The climax comes when the crocodile, overwhelmed by the palace's grandeur, forgets about dancing entirely and simply does what crocodiles do best. It floats peacefully in the palace pool, basking in the afternoon sun. The court realizes that the crocodile's greatest dance is simply being itself, moving with the natural rhythm of water and sunlight. The song ends with everyone swaying gently, arms outstretched, mimicking the peaceful floating of a content crocodile. The most ambitious theatrical song is The Mystery of the Disappearing Pyramid. This epic tale requires the entire afternoon to perform, with musicians gradually transforming the brothel into different locations throughout ancient Egypt. The story begins with workers arriving one morning to find that one of the great pyramids has simply vanished, leaving only a pyramid-shaped hole in the sand. Guests become investigators, examining clues hidden throughout the brothel: toy camels, miniature sphinxes, scrolls written in playful hieroglyphs. The mystery deepens as witnesses come forward with increasingly absurd theories. Perhaps the pyramid grew tired of standing still and walked away on hidden legs. Maybe it was homesick for the quarry where its stones were born. Some suggest it turned invisible to escape the crowds of visitors. Musicians guide the investigation through song, with each new verse revealing another bizarre clue or witness testimony. The performance becomes an elaborate game of imagination, with guests following musical leads from room to room, discovering props and solving riddles that make less sense the more they think about them. The revelation comes when someone discovers that the pyramid didn't disappear. It simply turned itself inside out, becoming a pyramid-shaped cave filled with the echoes of ancient laughter. The final scene has everyone gathering inside this imaginary inverted pyramid, singing together in harmony, their voices creating the ancient laughter that the pyramid was built to preserve. These theatrical songs serve multiple purposes in the brothel. They provide elaborate entertainment that can fill entire afternoons. They create bonds between guests who might otherwise remain strangers. Most importantly, they offer everyone the chance to become someone else for a while, to play roles, try new voices, and discover aspects of themselves they might never explore in the serious world outside. As the golden afternoon deepens, a gentle breeze flows through the shaded rooms, and the music in the brothel shifts yet again. Now it's time for a special kind of performance, the mirror songs. These tunes are built on playful reflection, clever parody, and social satire, where the everyday life of Thebes, Memphis, or any sun-soaked Egyptian town is dramatized, teased, and transformed through music. In these songs, the line between truth and absurdity softens, drawing everyone into a shared game of recognition and laughter. The most iconic of the mirror songs is the Song of the Five Scribes. Musicians pick up their slim reed flutes, tapping rhythms against the sides of wine jars and plucking simple lyres. The story begins in the dusty record-keeping rooms of the temple, where five scribes argue endlessly about the best way to record the Pharaoh's supper menu. Each scribe is convinced that his version, whether drawn in hieroglyphs, sung aloud, or painted with fruit juice, is the only one that truly honors Egypt's divine ruler. Guests in the brothel eagerly take up roles as scribes, chefs, or supervisors, bickering with exaggerated voices over the correct placement of onions, the sequence of stews, the poetry of fig cakes. Musicians add verses invented on the spot. The scribe who insists on drawing every fish individually, another who writes only in riddles, the chef who demands extra wine for inspiration. Soon, the brothel erupts in laughter as new guests are recruited to settle each culinary dispute, sometimes by forming impromptu judging panels. As the story builds, musicians spin the tune into a satire of bureaucracy and vanity. The Pharaoh grows impatient, waiting for his meal as the record grows longer than the menu itself. In the final chorus, everyone joins in to proclaim that the only way to truly honor the Pharaoh's dinner is to eat it, not just record it. The song ends with mock cheers and a playful toast to scribes, chefs, and fig cakes everywhere. Another popular mirror song is The Ballad of the Overlooked Artisan. This tune draws on slow, contemplative melodies and gentle percussion played on clay pots. The story follows a humble craftsman who creates the finest sandals in town, yet is always overshadowed by loud merchants, boastful scribes, and the ever-busy market crowd. Each verse is a miniature scene. The craftsman repairing a favorite pair for the high priest, making sturdy shoes for hard-working farmers, or gifting beautiful sandals to orphaned children. Still, no one seems to remember his name or appreciate his quiet skill. Guests often become inspired to share their own stories of overlooked work, simple acts of kindness, or small triumphs unnoticed by the world. Musicians weave these memories into the song, building a moving tapestry of everyday heroism and gentle humility. The chorus circles slowly, reminding everyone that, in the end, true worth is found not in praise but in service, patience, and the gifts we give without expectation. The brothel's mirror songs often shift quickly between comedy and bittersweet truth. One night, a tune may poke fun at the market's gossip, using sharp, playful lyrics to imitate the back-and-forth chatter of the town's vendors. The pomegranate seller swears he's honest, while the next may drift into melancholy, exploring the loneliness of the temple's night watch or the lost dreams of a merchant whose heart is too gentle for bargaining, the stillness of the lotus pond market. No matter the mood, these songs unite everyone: musicians, guests, storytellers, even those passing through for only a moment, in a shared appreciation of life's quirks, challenges, and small joys. They offer a chance to see oneself, one's neighbors, and one's city reflected in music, not with judgment, but with laughter and empathy. The mirror songs remind us that the brothel is a place not only for distraction and fantasy, but for gentle truth-telling. An evening spent wandering the curious landscape of human experience, learning to love and laugh at oneself and seeing the wisdom in both the ordinary and the bizarre. In the slow hours, when laughter has faded and all that remains is the gentle hum of conversation, the thoughts of those present sometimes wander to the musicians themselves. It's easy to imagine them only as storytellers, jesters, or purveyors of nightly amusement. But in truth, their lives were a tapestry of skill, ambition, hardship, and kinship that stretched far beyond the evening's performance. From a very young age, certain girls and boys found themselves drawn to music's possibilities. Unlike the temple apprentices, who were often chosen by priests and trained in the precise rituals of religious tradition, these children learned in the clutter of their own homes, in busy city streets, and, if they were lucky, under the watchful eye of a working musician. The brothel was one of the few places where true musical diversity thrived. There, one could find the daughter of a baker playing with the son of a market scribe, both eager to master the tricks of the trade. Training in these houses usually began as simple imitation. Newcomers swept floors or ran quick errands, but at the edge of the room they'd listen to the evenings unfold, absorbing every lyric, every side joke, every clever improvisation. Over time, they'd be offered a small drum or a simple wooden rattle. With each song, with each snippet of advice from elder musicians, their confidence grew. Soon enough, a bold apprentice might try her hand at a flute or ask to sing a verse by the fire when the crowd's mood turned gentle. For those who found a foothold here, the brothel became a school of life. Its music was never rigid, it flowed and shifted with the crowd, the time of day, even the weather outside. Musicians learned a rare agility. They could switch from comedy to comfort in the span of a heartbeat, could read a tense room and choose a tune that made it bloom with ease. Sometimes, when a guest arrived troubled or sad, the entire company would gather and invent a new song just for them, weaving their worries into something lighter and easier to carry. The lives of these performers were both blessed and challenging. Temple musicians enjoyed greater standing in the city, but their roles were weighed down by expectation and ritual. Brothel musicians relied on their wits and talents, navigating judgment and uncertainty with resilience. Yet in the evenings, as the rooms filled with patrons from every walk of life, farmers, fishermen, merchants, travellers, even passing nobles, all distinctions fell away. Music cut through status. It gave voice to the ignored, stitched together strangers, and built alliances where none had existed. Work here was rarely solitary. Musicians shared everything. Meals cooked in the communal kitchen, small coins earned from grateful visitors, healing herbs, songs and stories, even old jokes passed down for generations. When illness struck or troubles brewed outside, music became the medicine that brought everyone together. On cold winter nights, a single verse could warm the room and spirits alike, a reminder that creativity could overcome even the hardest luck. Improvisation was the heart of this culture, as essential as bread. Musicians delighted in inventing wild verses as inspiration struck about beards on parade, crocodiles with two left feet, sandals with secret dreams. Their art was responsive and democratic. Guests could call out for their favorite themes or invent new ones on the spot, and the musicians would make them sing. There were moments of hardship, of course. Sometimes, even the music couldn't drown out the reality of living on the edge of social respectability. Some singers and players hoped for a chance to move up to court, to festivals, or even to temple work. Others knew this place, this community, would always be home. For many, the brothel was more than a workplace. It was a family that cared for its own, lifted everyone's spirits, and celebrated life's small joys with a kind of boundless generosity. The joy lay in creation. The more bizarre the song, the richer the night, because strangeness, laughter, and storytelling were shields against monotony and sorrow. When the world pressed close with its seriousness and routine, here in the brothel a musician could spin a fantasy of floating pyramids, dreaming pillows, bearded cats, and wise onions. Here, people remembered that playfulness was valuable, not childish, and that every night was a chance to renew hope, release burdens, and strengthen ties. Sometimes the stories told reached well beyond these walls. A clever tune could escape, picked up by traders, ferrymen, or market children, until it was sung beneath the stars or even occasionally whispered at a temple festival by a bold priest with a sense of humor. The brothel was a seedbed of musical invention, and the legacy of its artists spread wide, transforming the tone of the city, the mood of celebrations, and the songs that lingered through the centuries. If you found yourself curious about the secret lives of these musicians, their training, joys, rivalries, and all the subtle ways they shaped ancient Egyptian society, let me know with a comment and a like. If enough of you ask, I'll create an entire story just about this fascinating community and how their art changed the shape of everyday life. As the night finally reaches its end and the last oil lamps flicker low, there's a moment of quiet that settles over everything, a gentle hush that feels both satisfying and bittersweet. The musicians begin to pack their instruments with careful hands, wrapping flutes in soft cloth, placing drums in woven baskets, tucking small bells into leather pouches. Their movements are slow, almost ceremonial, as if they're reluctant to let the magic of the evening fully fade away. In this final hour, conversations become softer, more personal. Guests who were strangers at sunset now exchange quiet words, sharing pieces of their lives, their journeys, their hopes for tomorrow. Some make plans to return, others simply sit in comfortable silence, letting the memory of bizarre songs and gentle laughter settle into their hearts like warm honey. The musicians themselves gather in small groups, their voices low as they discuss the night's performances. Which songs worked best? What moments brought the loudest laughter? Should they try that new verse about the philosophical fish again tomorrow? Their craft never truly stops. Even in these quiet moments, they're learning, growing, preparing for the next evening's magic. Outside, the city of ancient Egypt sleeps peacefully under star-filled skies. The Nile flows quietly past, carrying its eternal burden of silt and dreams. Temple bells have long since fallen silent. Market squares lie empty, waiting for dawn's first vendors. But inside these humble rooms, something precious lingers. The echo of human connection, the warmth of shared stories, the gentle reminder that even in the most unexpected places, beauty and wonder can bloom. The brothel musicians understood something profound about the human spirit. They knew that people didn't just need food and shelter and work. They needed laughter, mystery, surprise, and the simple joy of being part of something larger than themselves. In their bizarre songs about dancing donkeys and missing beards, about wise beetles and flying bread, they offered gifts that no coin could buy: the freedom to imagine, the permission to laugh at life's absurdities, and the comfort of knowing that everyone, no matter how different, shared the same basic need for wonder and connection. As the last guests prepare to leave, stepping out into the cool night air with heads full of strange melodies, they carry with them more than entertainment. They carry the ancient wisdom that life is both serious and silly, both challenging and magical, both ordinary and extraordinary, all at the same time. The songs they've heard tonight will echo in their dreams, surface in quiet moments, and perhaps inspire them to find their own small ways of adding joy and whimsy to the world. The musicians too find their rest, but not before sharing one final tradition. In the darkness, with only the faintest glow from dying embers, they hum together. Not any particular song, just a gentle, wordless melody that rises and falls like breathing, like the rhythm of the distant river, like the heartbeat of a city at peace. It's their way of saying thank you to each other, to the night, to the strange and beautiful privilege of making music that brings people together. And so, as these ancient voices fade into silence and the last of the lamplight dims, we too must bid farewell to this hidden corner of Egypt's past. The brothels are long gone, the musicians' names forgotten, their instruments turned to dust. But somewhere in the eternal night, their songs continue, carried on the wind, whispered by the stars, living on in every moment when strangers become friends over shared laughter and the simple magic of a well-told tale. Sweet dreams, dear listener. May your sleep be filled with dancing crocodiles and wise onions, with patient beetles and flying bread, with all the gentle absurdities that make life beautiful. And may you wake tomorrow with a little more lightness in your heart, a little more wonder in your eyes, and perhaps, just perhaps, a bizarre song of your own waiting to be sung. Good night.